I'm Rebecca Fanning, here today to introduce you to Community Hydrology, an emerging initiative guided by three principles in its mission to foster land stewards for water bodies. Community hydrologists take responsibility for what can be done by implementing existing plans with many hands to care about and care for the waterways that define us. At the core of community hydrology is a drive to foster land stewardship practices that build meaningful relationships between communities of people, plants, wildlife, and the water bodies we all depend on. Watercourses created this land and forever define the survival strategies of our communities of flora and fauna. Former coastal dune systems grew into dry, sandy pineland meadows. High infiltration through sand feeds the seeps to depressional wetlands of our fertile hardwood bottomland forests. And tidal creeks vacillate salty and fresh through our expansive marsh platforms, creating a coastline that is intricate and ever-changing. But in contrast to these naturally occurring landscapes, much of the development in Charleston has occurred with little to no regard for the waterways that define us. Dry, sandy, upland golf courses punctuate winding suburban roads flanked by landscaping comprised of plantings of Loropetalum, ligustrum, nandina, all legacies of a colonial heritage rooted in Britain's former preoccupation with the Chinese gardening tradition. Our azaleas and camellias co-evolved with the insects and birds of Asia. But Carolina's cypress and gum that would rise out of depressional wetlands are conspicuously absent from our modern sort of lingering water in stormwater ponds. No room for trees in our clean-shaven open space brought to you by gasoline. And the tidal flux that would push water back and forth across so many of our backyards has been stanched by culverts and pipes, ditches and drains, buttresses of berms old and new. Our relationship to water has been to shoo it off our property and ASAP. We have been hard-headed about that, inflexible and prone to snap. And all of these alterations have had severe implications for biodiversity. This diagram from the Xerces Society demonstrates the interdependencies of communities of plants, insects, and avian life limited by the typical American lawn. When much of the land cover is dedicated to impervious surfaces and the primary vegetation is limited to manicured lawn typical of suburban development, this creates an environment that can't support life forms like pollinators that are essential for the perpetual care of our islands of wild. Land held in conservation easement increasingly serves as a memorial to what has been lost, a testament to the communities we have abandoned. We must repair our relationship to water before we can begin to repair our relationship to the communities involved. Too often, grassroots approaches are ignored. But when we think about what community hydrologists can accomplish with their own two hands and working together as neighbors and friends, we can do a lot better than this. I'll be the first to admit it, paradise is lost and there's no going back. But to move forward is not all too challenging. Basically, we've got a lot of turf to cover, and we can start one lot at a time. We can re-enchant the low country and reconnect our communities, fostering land stewards for water bodies.